You're listening to Young PR Pros episode 115, 12 Days of Christmas.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Young PR Pros, a podcast for the young and young at heart PR pros looking for tips and advice on how to build and advance their careers. I am Kristine Darbell in Ottawa, Canada.
I'm Julia Kent in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
And I'm Ross Simmons, also in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
So happy holidays, everyone.
Same to you guys.
Yeah, I guess we can say that now.
It's true.
Yes,
it's that time of the year.
So any big plans? Do we have any, I'm curious to know what's the one tradition that you do every Christmas that you're really, really looking forward to?
Well, this is my first Christmas in a decade where I'm not traveling somewhere over the holidays. So since moving back to Nova Scotia, we are here with family and we're staying put. But in terms of a strange tradition, Christmas morning, we always have homemade cinnamon buns and grapefruit. So
nice.
That's pretty specific.
I was about to say.
That is pretty specific.
That's awesome. What about you, Ross?
That is awesome. I don't have any real crazy traditions. I know on Christmas Day, there's quite a shindig at my grandmother's house every year, where there's probably about 20 or 25 Simmonses all in one place, and it gets pretty rowdy and it's a good time. But that's the biggest tradition that we tend to have, and it's always a fun time of laughs and making fun of each other. So yeah, it's always good.
Kristine, I'm very interested to hear about Nicaraguan Christmases.
Oh, well, we're going to have a low-key Nicaraguan Christmas, but basically our Nicaraguan Christmases always end up with, an empty bottle of rum at the end of the night. So it's always a good time.
I don't know there, Kristine. Ross, that sounds like a Nova Scotian Christmas to us too.
It does, definitely does.
Anyway, so let's get on to today's topic. So by the time that you listen to this episode, I'm rounding because, again, I don't know exactly when this episode is actually going to be airing, but it'll be around 12 days before Christmas. Might be a little bit closer to Christmas, but anyway, around that time, which in honor of the traditional 1900s English Christmas Carol, or of course, if you're in my generation, the Bob and Doug Christmas classic, we thought we would share Young PR Pros 12 Days of Christmas Learning. So again, that kind of sounds lame, but it's actually pretty exciting. We've got a ton of really neat and unique opportunities to kind of really make your time off of school or the holiday away from work really valuable for both personally and for your career as well. So we've divided the 12 days into 3 categories. We're going to talk about books, movies, and activities that you should read, watch, and do over the Christmas holidays. So let's start. And I'm not going to sing, but on the first day of Christmas,
Young PR Pros gave to me
a book, and we're going to talk about the books. So I'll jump in and talk about one book that you should read over the Christmas holidays. It's called No Fears, No Regrets by Larry Smith. In a couple of previous episodes ago, I actually did a book report on this. It was a little segment in one of our previous episodes. And basically, No Fears and No Regrets is it's actually you could do it at any time of your career. I feel like at the beginning of your career, it kind of gives you that direction that you need to really point yourself in the right direction to start building your career early on and to make sure that you're taking the right steps to building a lifetime of a career and not just looking for a job. So it's really getting your mindset in, you're building a career and your first job is just the first step in building your career. And it gives you a bunch of tips and tools on how to do that. The other time of the career, I guess, that is really good is kind of like midway or a couple of years you've been in your career. You might have had a few jobs, but you're still not sure what you really want to do. It's a really, really good book to kind of get you refocused and find your passion to make sure that you're headed in the right direction. So whether you're just out of school, about to graduate, or you've been in your career for 5-10 years, it's a great book and I really suggest it. So on the second day of Christmas, Ross.
So on the second day of Christmas, I would recommend that everyone check out a book called How Will You Measure Your Life by Christensen. I believe he's a professor at Harvard, but the book itself is something that I have made a tradition personally to read every time this year, around this time each year. And essentially what it is it's a great book that talks about what actually provides people with happiness in their career. It talks about how to live your life with integrity. It talks about how you can find some contentment in your day-to-day activities that you're doing. And it also talks about how studies show that money isn't the number one motivator, and it talks about what actually does inspire people. So it is a great book. It allows me to kind of, after a full year of hustle and grind and going full at it as it relates to my variety of businesses, it allows me to kind of reset, take a big picture look at kind of evaluating my life, where I want it to go, and give me the perspective that I need to kind of ensure that I am staying true to kind of my overarching vision around what I want to do in these years that I have on earth. So it's a great book, and I strongly recommend that every young pro, and even those who are just young at heart, check this book out.
I've actually not heard of that book before. So
All right, so Julia, you're
want
next.
to add to my list.
I like it.
Yeah. So my book, and I love when we have these guidelines for these episodes, because I get so excited to pick from my vast mental library of wonderful PR related books. But mine is a book that I'm positive, Kristine, you'll have to remind me, I'm positive I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but it's called The Defining Decade by Dr. Meg Jay.
Yes, you have.
Have either of you read this? I've definitely mentioned it. Yeah. Ross, are you familiar with it?
I've never heard of it.
Oh my God. No. Okay. So am I right that we're all still in our 20s?
Yes.
Just. Yeah. I'm just. Yeah.
Holding on to it as long as I can.
Yes, exactly. So The Defining Decade, and the subtitle is Why Your Twenties Matter and How to Make the Most of Them.
Cool.
Really speaks to the 30 is the new 20 culture in our society, and how that tells us that 20-something years don't matter, and how a lot of people see their 20s as an extended adolescence, and they put off joining adulthood by making the excuse that their 20s don't matter. The book really argues that 30 is not the new 20, and it's dangerous to get caught up in this swirl of hype and misinformation, and really to miss the most transformative period of our lives. I absolutely adored it. And it has different sections. It has a section on relationships. It has a section on your career. It has all sorts of different sections, but they all tie into who you become. And I found it really, really spoke to me at the time in my life and reaffirmed some of the decisions that I had made. But I highly, highly recommend it. Yeah. So The Defining Decade by Dr. Meg Jay.
I like it.
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
I'll check it out.
So on the fourth day of Christmas, I suggest that you read a book called Eat, Shoots, and Leaves. Has anyone ever heard of that one?
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
Definitely.
Yes.
I have not.
Oh, my gosh.
It sounds like Eat, Pray, Love.
So
no, it's a writing book.
It's yes,
cool.
it's actually a grammar book, and the whole joke is about like eat, shoots, and leave is an ambiguous sentence, because if you, depending on where you put the comma, it says two different things, and the front cover is a panda. So a panda eats shoots, and then he walks away, he leaves. Or does he eat and then shoot something and then walk away? So it all depends on the way where you put the comma. So it's kind of the author talks about how it's a funny joke and a long-standing joke that she has with one of her friends. So that's why she used that as the title of her book. But basically, she's a journalist and I think a teacher or professor for the majority of her life. And the way she just knows everything about grammar, and she has a really, really good sense of humor. It's like a British sense of humor as well. And it's a really fun read. I mean, you think, a book on grammar, that's going to be boring and long. But I zipped through it in like maybe a week. It was so much fun to read. And I actually learned something throughout the entire time. And one thing that's really important for PR, communications, and marketing professionals, writing is a key in our industry. And not only is it just being able to tell a story properly, but being able to tell a story with proper grammar and no spelling mistakes is really important, because bad grammar and spelling mistakes decredits your writing and your pieces, right? So it's definitely a fun book. If you want to brush up on your grammar knowledge, I definitely suggest that one.
Nice.
So let's move on to movies. So we're going to talk about movies that you should watch over the holiday, aside from, Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Christmas Vacation. All those are really fun to watch, and make sure you get those family movies out of the way. But there are a couple of pop culture movies and some interesting movies that we're going to suggest that you should watch over the holidays. So on the 5th day of Christmas, go ahead, Ross.
So on the 5th day of Christmas, I would recommend that everyone check out a movie called Ex Machina. Have you guys heard of this or seen it or seen trailers?
Yes. I just watched it last
week. Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, so good. Such an amazing movie. It's a science fiction, which I don't watch a lot of, but this one in particular, I was referred it by plenty of friends. Lots of people on Twitter were telling me to watch this movie. I watched it and I absolutely loved every minute of it. It had me on the edge of my seat. And I won't have any spoilers, but I'll give you the premise. Essentially, it's in the future. It talks about artificial intelligence and how people will get a little bit crazy with AI and how that will influence our culture as a whole, but also how if AI gets into the wrong hands, some crazy things can happen. I'll leave it at that. It is, without question, a movie that I strongly recommend everyone check out. It's quite intense, but at the same time, it's one that'll definitely leave you thinking.
Yes, I second that. That was an awesome movie. I actually just watched it last week and on the edge of my seat, and I will never see a robot in the same way.
That is a fair way to put it.
Kind of a little terrified of AI now, but no, it's a really, really great movie. It's awesome.
Hi, Young PR Pros listeners. My name is Sharon Chung. I'm a PR professional in Ottawa, Canada, and this podcast in particular has helped jumpstart my career, whether through relevant industry insights or reminders for transitioning from role to role. So keep listening.
All right, on the 6th day of Christmas, I would suggest, I had such a hard time picking between the two, so I'm going to quickly recap the two because I can't decide. Good Will Hunting is a classic, and it's referenced a lot in pop culture. And I watched it, and it was just a really good, Good Will Hunting is it's with Matt Damon, Robin Williams, and I'm blanking on the last actor. But anyway, some pretty big names that weren't so popular at the time, and they, that was kind of a kickstart to their career. So it's really nice to see them in the early parts of their career, especially Matt Damon, who does an excellent job in this movie. But the reason why I would suggest it is not only is it a great movie, but ever since I watched it, all of a sudden there was all these pop culture references that I finally understood. Because I feel like I never realized how often people reference Good Will Hunting. So great movie. Quick premise is just, Matt Damon is a guy in a poor neighborhood, but he's actually brilliant and really smart. He happens to be a janitor at a university, and a professor writes an equation on the whiteboard outside of the classroom, and he ends up solving it, and then it kind of opens this whole door to kind of cultivating his smartness, I guess. But I guess I'm just going to quickly skip. So I'll do two then. So on the 7th day of Christmas, I'm going to suggest Hancock. Have you guys seen Hancock yet?
I saw it many moons ago. I don't remember it that well, but I do recall seeing it.
I don't think I have.
So it has Will Smith, and this is actually a PR movie. In reality, it's a superhero movie. So if you like superheroes, it'll be a nice one to put on your list. But there's a very strong presence of public relations in the movie. So Jason Bateman, who is played by Will Smith, he discusses the fine art of grassroots outreach, reputation management, and even a little bit of CSR, so corporate social responsibility campaigns in the movie. So all this kind of stuff is touched upon. So basically, Hancock Hancock is a washed up lush, drowning his superpowers at the bottom of a bottle, so he's an alcoholic. And Bateman saves the day by saving his image. So there's all this different kinds of things as how does he actually save his image.
Right.
So it's a nice movie to actually watch with kids if you have kids or nieces and nephews over. It's a superhero movie and it has a good meaning and a good story at the end. But it's also kind of fun because there's some PR in there, and it gets anyway. It's a really good movie. I highly suggest it. So
it's a good call. I can do a mean Hancock impression as well. Only on Halloween though. But yeah, no, it's a good one.
We're gonna have to see that one day.
Good to know.
On the 8th day of Christmas, go Julia.
On the 8th day of Christmas, now this was hard for me, so I might have to do an honorable mention to 2 other movies. But on the 8th day of Christmas, I think you should be watching the movie The Iron Lady with Meryl Streep. And I chose this because when I think of movies that taught me something about PR and different types of PR that I've not yet worked in, or PR situations I've not worked in myself, this highlights Margaret Thatcher's really her entire life, but it is very heavy on political PR and how to run political campaigns and all of the political campaigns are probably the most condensed form of PR you can possibly get. Just think about the American election that we've just witnessed. There's endless examples where you can learn in this movie in particular, and not to mention Meryl Streep's acting is, as always, just incredible. But particularly the 1979 general election in the UK, there was bombings of a hotel, there were riots, there were Margaret Thatcher's decision to retake the Falkland Islands when they invaded Argentina. There's all sorts of major crisis management. It's just riddled with learning opportunities for a young PR pro. So that is my movie you should be watching on day 8 of Christmas. And I will also very quickly say honorable mention. The other 2 I was considering were The Devil Wears Prada.
Yes.
And that was the first one that came to mind, which is kind of embarrassing, but also awesome. Similar to The Iron Lady, The Queen, which deals with the crisis management following the death of Princess Diana and the royal family's image. I'm obviously a royalist, but hence all these movies that I just love about the UK. But yeah, that's my recommendation.
And just to kind of to echo your thoughts about the Iron Lady, that's a really great example. And I Margaret Thatcher is also a very powerful female character, or just like in our lives, and a really good role model, I think, for a woman who kind of took. She was prime minister in an age of. In a man's world, right? So it's I think it's really remarkable how she kind of took that on, and a really good idol, I think, for women to look up. I mean, I know there's controversy around her as well, but I think just in general, the way that she held her own throughout her entire life, very, very strong and powerful woman, is a really good idol to look up to. So
agreed.
All right, now we're heading off to the last 4 days of Christmas. So we're gonna talk about activities you should do on over the holidays. So on the 9th day of Christmas, what should we do, Julia?
This was easy for me. My favorite thing, in short, and I'm never short-winded, read the news. Read a newspaper, read a physical newspaper. My favorite thing to do over the holidays, Christmas Day, what is on the front page of the national newspapers, National Post, Globe and Mail, and what is on the front page also of your local newspaper. Here in Halifax, it would probably be the Chronicle Herald. And also New Year's Day. So Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Make note what made the front page, and that will tell you so much about where our society is, where your community is. Was it a slow news day? Is it the snowstorm? Is it the, kids that didn't get Christmas gifts, or, what is it? Or is it something major? Like, remember the year that it was the tsunami? So my favorite thing to do, what's on the front page of the national newspapers on Christmas Day and New Year's Day? Read the news.
That's a good tip. I like that.
It's a good tip. I like it. That's cool.
And on the 10th day of Christmas, what do we do, Ross?
So on the 10th day, some of you might already do this, and some of you might not. Me personally, I started last year, and it's something that I have started to do more than just in the Christmas time, but something that I definitely recommend people to consider, and that is take a class or just try some type of yoga. And the reason why I say that is because as an entrepreneur, I believe fully that if you do not have your mind right, then you cannot have your business and your professional life right. And 1 in 3 entrepreneurs live with depression, and it is something that is very real. And I know firsthand that there are some amazing highs and some ridiculous lows. And during the holiday season, especially thereafter, people tend to see their credit card debt. They start to see things. They start to kind of fall off of their New Year's resolutions, and it can be a sucky time. So yoga, as a lot of science and research has been done to show that it can have a decrease in your levels of stress. It can be great for your flexibility, for your posture, and it's way more than just relaxation. Like, it gives you an opportunity to really clear your mind and have a good understanding of where you want to go in the new year, and also gives you some time to yourself. We're always constantly surrounded by notifications and buzzes and dings and all of this stuff, while yoga offers you the opportunity to be in complete silence, just you and your body, you and your poses, trying to improve yourself mentally and physically at the same time.
I like that. And yeah,
I didn't know you were a yogi.
I know.
Ross. This is new information.
I am.
Kristine is too.
Is
I am
new.
not. Try and get me to sit still. It just doesn't happen.
Yes. I haven't done yoga actually in a while, but I do miss it. I try to do it as often as possible. It's a really nice way to disconnect. And yes, like you said, Ross, just take some time for yourself, because that's really important.
It's true.
On the 11th day of Christmas, I have a fun one. Learn more about your family members and learn more about your family. So not only just learning about your family history, which I think is really important. I find that it used to be where you would sit around after dinner and you'd listen to stories from your grandparents, and then they would tell you about, where they came from, where your family came from, and everyone knew so much about their family. And some people still do it that way, and some people, carry on those stories. But I find less and less and less are people sitting around and talking about their family history. And I always think it's a fun little thing to know. And it's also, the more you know about your history, the fun little stories that you can bring up in networking events, and, who knows who you're connected to as you go way back. I just find that knowing a little bit more about your family history will help you also just understand more about yourself. And then all this information is really useful because you never know when you will need professional help from a family member. Now, I know there is that saying, don't mix family and business, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to work with them. I just, what if your Aunt Sue is an entrepreneur who lived through a recession of 2008 and kept her business alive? How did she do it? You never know if you're going to be faced with the same problem, and maybe your family members or someone who's right in your very own home or right next door can actually help you in a crisis in life and actually give you advice. And often I find that we go and we look for other professional advice with people we meet at networking events, but sometimes family has been through something similar. So always fun to learn about your family history, and then you never know what you're going to learn about your family. It's always, I think it's a fun little exercise.
I like it.
And on the last day, on the 12th day of Christmas, you have to listen to this podcast. And of course, other podcasts as well. A couple of my favorite podcasts that have recently come out by Gimlet Media is Undone in Crime Town, is two really fun podcasts. Freakonomics is another really good one. The Revisionist History by Malcolm Gladwell, another great podcast. Anyway, find some time to listen to podcasts. We're in an age where there are so many new podcasts that are popping up everywhere, and they're touching on a bunch of different niche topics, just like Young PR Pros. So get out there and find out what other podcasts are out there, and fill your boots. You can it's like Netflix but audio. It's actually a really fun time right now to be connecting with different podcasts. So there is our 12 days of Christmas. Is there anything else anyone wants to add to our 12 days of Christmas?
Nothing on my end. I just hope everybody enjoys their Christmas break and holiday season. I definitely also a shout out to anybody who will be going through fantasy football playoffs at that time. I know that the season ends on Christmas, so it's going to be stressful for a lot of folks. So my heart's with you.
You and my husband both.
Oh, yes. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Take some time for yourself. And thank you so much, everyone, for, listening to this podcast and for keeping this podcast alive. So, happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate the love and support. Please leave us a review on iTunes. It means the world to us. And please definitely check out our blog as well, youngprpros.ca. I'm Ross Simmons. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time. This episode featured tracks from Poddington Bear. The sound work and editing was done by the wonderful Claire Bonnyman.